From our constituents is there a way for you to help to make sure that all of the voices of the constituents that are registered Republicans are heard?
Well, apparently that way is what is scheduled for next March in Idaho. Hope you like getting together in large groups of people and deciding who's going to be president. Sorry if you're an introvert. A glitch in a new Idaho law unintentionally left no path for a March or May primary or presidential primary election. So, well, a caucus must be held. And there are ways out of this. There was at least one way that didn't make it through the legislative session. But as of now, these sides on different sides will need to make a deal, which also has not happened, to get out of this. And the main reason that many want out of this caucus is because it's a format that's not really as welcoming as a traditional primary. All you gotta do is look at the numbers to see who participates. But this decision is left up to the state's Central Committee, and we're hearing from them today. So the questions that we have for them and the party chair, Dorothy Moon, answers for this, I should say, we should turn to Joe Paris, who hopefully has the answers to this that he heard from the party chair.
Yes. All right, Brian. We reached out to Dorothy Moon last week when we originally talked about this issue, and she got back to us on Friday. So the caveat heading into this report is that lawmakers are still working through possible legislative options to address the presidential primary. So everything we're still talking about is an active situation. Clock is ticking, though. The national GOP has an October deadline to get paperwork and operations plans submitted. So a highlighted fact in this situation, lawmakers and the Idaho GOP leaders, the state Central Committee, they operate in different spheres, and this is highlighted by a main point of contention. Idaho lawmakers passed and Governor Little signed a law that combines the March and May election dates into May, and by doing this, it generated about $3 million in taxpayer savings, so you only have to have one election. So House Bill 138 accomplished all of this past legislative session. The Idaho GOP did not like the move in principle because they wanted to hold a caucus earlier in the primary cycle to generate more national attention to Idaho. May primary was a potential option, but party chair Dorothy Moon wanted to see a vote earlier, as early as February at one point. But for now, the Idaho GOP says that they will hold a March caucus unless lawmakers overturn House Bill 138, restoring the March election date. Undoing that would undo $2.7 million in taxpayer savings, consolidating the election. That's what it achieved. So I asked Chair Moon, does having the March caucus mean more to the Idaho GOP than the $2.7 million savings accomplished in House Bill 138? And via email, Chair Moon said that the economic benefit that the state of Idaho will see in an early presidential nomination contest, she believes, has the potential to be much more significant than the estimated savings of House Bill 138. She tells me that when candidates know that they need to win a state's delegates, like in Idaho, they will spend more time and resources campaigning in that state. So attracting major presidential candidates to Idaho, and with it positive economic impact, that is a consistent message from the Idaho GOP as of late. Party rules reflect that. For example, for a candidate to be placed on the official ballot for the Idaho Republican caucus, this is as of this summer, he or she needs to submit a $50,000 filing fee. However, if that candidate holds at least one public campaign event in person in the state of Idaho prior to the caucus, well, then that person actually will get half of their refund back, meaning if they paid $50,000, they'll get $25,000 in their filing fee back just by coming to Idaho and having a campaign event. So that type of offer is designed to attract candidates to Idaho. So I wrote to Chair Moon about Idaho voters who are worried about the format of a caucus. They tell us that they prefer a traditional primary and worry that the caucus will be complicated. And Chair Moon tells me, quote, "We are in the process of putting together a comprehensive guide for our county to ensure the caucus is as uncomplicated as possible and encourages voter turnout." She says that we will be holding a, quote, firehouse caucus, which she tells me are significantly different than the caucuses in 2012. She says one round of voting, not hours. And Chair Moon even included a new website that the Idaho Republican Party has. It's the Idaho Republican Caucus here, and you can go onto their FAQ page and you can scan through all this and you can kind of read the ins and outs, the questions that you may have. The Idaho Republican Party has their answer. So Moon adds to me in response to the format criticism that, quote, a firehouse caucus is one of the most straightforward ways for a political party to pick a party nominee, run and funded by the party and not the state. And finally, to cap all this up, I asked about practical challenges that Idahoans could have with going to a caucus. One-time event, active duty military, or someone who's ill that day, they'd have to miss it. A traditional primary has early voting, absentee, etc., but Moon doubles down in her message, saying in part, it is our goal to re-enfranchise as many voters as possible that were disenfranchised by the removal of the presidential primary. Again, Brian, the final solution to all of this of getting a primary back in March would be repealing House Bill 138, undoing the tax savings, and then going from there. So again, you have two sides that are categorically on very different sides of what they want. Lawmakers want to keep the savings that they generated for the most part because of House Bill 138. On the other side of the aisle, you have the Idaho GOP State Central Committee that says if we want to do a primary, we want to do it early in the year. If we can't do a primary, then we'll just do the caucus at the beginning of the year. So I'm told in terms of the legislative solution, they're still working through potential paths forward, what that looks like right now. Everyone has to wait, but clock is ticking.
Okay, I was just looking back at whether, Ted Cruz back in 2016, he won Idaho in that primary election, but he only visited Idaho like a couple of days or days before that election. Did that bring in $2.7 million to the state, or more than $2.7 million to the state?
I didn't do the math on that trip. That'd be interesting to look into that. I will say that Chair Moon sent me an NBC article that showed that in the state of Georgia, the state of Atlanta, the political groupings there were hoping that getting stuff early in the cycle would attract more candidates. It's kind of a wait and see if what happened in Georgia would happen in Idaho.
All right. Thank you very much, Joe.